Okay, members of panel number 2, come on up. And the focus of this panel is going to be safety and security, very specifically at the school building level. Even though we've heard a lot about it already, you're going to have some very interesting best practices that we're going to be discussing in about another minute or two. Okay, so security audits, closed circuit cameras, access cards, these are among the strategies that many local school districts have used or are beginning to use to help secure their schools. Districts are also using unique ways of communicating with the community in promoting a healthy and respectful school climate. This panel features 2 school administrators with significant achievements in promoting safe and secure schools. The panel also has on it a security expert from a major healthcare facility with complex security challenges and an expert on risk management. Someone who can talk about building enhancements that promote the safety of students and staff from that perspective. So Dr. Chris Manno, Chris, raise your hand, okay. Chris is the Chief Education Officer, Superintendent of Schools, if you will, for the Burlington Township Schools. As the Superintendent of Schools, Chris developed the district's emergency preparedness task force, and he did this in order to promote a safer environment within all of the township schools. The task force consists of district staff, public safety personnel, risk management experts, as well as several community representatives. Dr. Michael Wanko, Mike? He's the principal of Piscataway High School. In his role, he is responsible for the security of a facility that has 2,400 students. He also wrote a book on school safety. Some people call it the textbook on school safety. It's entitled Safe Schools, Crisis Prevention and Response. Dr. Wanko is also a former president of the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association. Chris Brown. Chris is the Director of Security for Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in New Brunswick. At that large facility, he has the responsibility for all security, safety, and parking services. He is a certified healthcare protection officer, certified through the International Association for Healthcare Security and Safety. Marty Kalbach. Marty? Marty is the director of the New Jersey School Boards Association Insurance Group. That's the state's largest joint insurance fund for school districts. He previously managed the group's safety and loss control operations. So let's begin with Superintendent Manno, and then we will hear from Mike, Chris, and Marty.
Thank you, Dr. Feinsod, and thank you to NJSBA for providing this valuable forum for boards and districts. Good morning, everyone. I think we can all agree that as a school leader, there's no more solemn task than keeping safe and secure the children and the adults that report to our schools each and every day. There are numerous aspects of school safety and security. However, as we heard today, there is no one solution or strategy that guarantees safe schools. Taken together, a variety of balanced measures can promote safety in our schools. Some of these approaches include emergency and crisis plans, visitor procedures, security systems, building design, law enforcement personnel, training and awareness, effective communications, and of course, promoting civility and a climate of respect, as we heard from Dr. Elias so eloquently this morning. While we have invested significantly in Burlington Township to develop a strong infrastructure for security, we realize that safety and security is not only about the systems and the hardware that we purchase. Today, I'll talk about the power of relationships and community partnerships in fostering a culture of safety and security in schools. And I'd like to take a moment to share our experience establishing a broad-based community partnership focusing on safety and security. Approximately 8 years ago, there existed a real community discomfort with a police presence in our schools. And I heard some today express that same sentiment as they described their feeling when they were greeted with officers after the Connecticut tragedy, officers in their schools. The then police director, Walt Corder, and I, we set out to change that mindset, and I feel confident that we did. We spent a lot of time together talking about how we could strengthen the bonds between the police and the schools and help the public become more comfortable with us working closely together. Initially, we formed what we called the School and Community Safety and Security Task Force, and over the years, the group evolved into what we now call the Emergency Preparedness Task Force. This group includes school administrators, police, fire, and EMS personnel, our school resource officers, representatives from the Board of Education and our town governing body, risk management professionals, security experts, officials from the County Office of Emergency Management, our student assistance counselor or coordinator, our anti-bullying specialists, our construction management firm, and YMCA personnel, because we house their before and their after-school programs. We actually have our second of 3 annual meetings this coming Tuesday. The stated purpose of the task force 8 years ago was to discuss and address issues of safety in our schools, plan for actions to ensure safety, and to promote cooperation and collaboration between the schools and public agencies. And I'm very proud to say that this purpose has not changed over 8 years. Over the years, the group has assumed the mantra that if we shake hands before the incident, we will not point fingers after the incident. Our group meets approximately 3 times per year, and our meetings are simple. During our meetings, each group provides key updates within their areas of responsibility, and we engage in a roundtable discussion to identify concerns and issues and proposed actions. Nothing is off the table. I'd like to cite some of the results of our work that are most significant to me. First, we know each other's names. That sounds simple, but when dealing in a crisis situation, it's so important. We know each other's roles and key priorities and initiatives. Our community members are now very comfortable with a police presence in and around our schools. Our community members are more comforted than they are scared when they see police personnel, police cruisers in and around our buildings. We regularly conduct joint exercises using various scenarios that represent possible threats that are identified at the table during our meetings. Together, we have improved and refined our emergency management plans and critical response plans. And our partnership has contributed to a major safety and security initiative called Project Guardian, which included technological, infrastructure, and many other security enhancements. Finally, I'd like to comment on another very important partnership that resulted from this work. Over time, we recognized that our faith-based partners can be a great asset in emergency situations and crises. We therefore developed a schools and faith-based roundtable group. The initial purpose of this group was to build relationships, share information, and work together to serve the community. As a result of establishing this group, we've developed a faith-based key communicators list, which is a powerful resource for conveying information throughout the community. Our faith-based partners are critical during the recovery phase of an incident, and they have participated on our crisis management teams on several occasions in that capacity. In summary, our belief is that school safety and security cannot be accomplished by simply installing cameras, locks, and security systems. The foundation of safe schools are strong relationships and a culture that makes safety everyone's business. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Chris?
Three things I would like to focus on from an aspect of healthcare security. One is being communication, two is being culture, and three is being training. First, on communication, what are the things that we try to do within our organization in healthcare security is to devise a level or a lines of communication from not only our patients and visitors, but our doctors, and our nurses, and the people that we serve. And open up that line of communication on roles and responsibilities and how everyone can help and train in having a safe and secure environment. Second is our culture. Our culture is trying to change the culture of the people that we serve, the response that we give back to people that we are serving, and the environment that is given there. Third is training. We work on training, whether it's conducting our drills on active shooters or policies that we have, our lockdown policies, better training for our security officers within our environment, increased training for our nursing staff and doctors as also. So those are some of the things that we do differently. And then we also partner with outside agencies such as local police departments and university and schools that we serve within our organization too. Some of the things that I want to make sure that I heard a lot of comments here today, and I know that healthcare fits somewhere within the school organization, but we come up against those same things that you talked about with funding and things of that nature. And there are different ways that you can open up, but you have to have that conversation to change your environment and change the way that people think about what they're going to receive. I think once you have those kind of conversations, then you're able to open up different lines and avenues to be able to solve some of the problems. So.
Thank you. Marty?
Good morning, everyone. And I also want to thank the New Jersey School Board Association for this event. As Larry had introduced me a few minutes ago, I'm the director of the New Jersey School Board Association Insurance Group, and we provide coverage for property casualty and workers' comp insurance to about 400 school districts in the state of New Jersey. So many of you are members of our group. I would like to be very practical in my presentation this morning. I looked at Sandy Hook situation and tried to come up with some lessons learned, and I'm going to get into that. But the first thing I want to do before I get started is I want to thank Chief Hadoka for taking such a strong stance on making sure that he told you that police in your school are okay, but a non-trained person or a retired police type of person provides a lot of liability, which I don't think you want to assume. So I'd like to thank the police chief for his comments there. From lessons learned at Sandy Hook, first of all, I think the first thing that you should understand is that, and I think Chris or Anthony made the statement that there's a school safety and security plan state requirement update that was required in October. I think each one of you need to go back to your school to see if that's been done, number one. But in terms of an additional lesson learned is, has there been a school security expert that has conducted a security, an evaluation of your premises with the federal level security management audit that's available to everyone? So the first thing you want to do is make sure that that's been done. Second thing is, and this might have helped in Sandy Hook, is are you providing a security outside walk of your facilities every 15 to 30 minutes? In that case, you might have spotted the person that's sitting in his car outside, or a car that's parked there that doesn't belong there, and that person could then contact the office and let them know that there's a potential security breach. Have you trained your staff to let them know what's supposed to happen in the event of a security breach? I know we talked today about 2 trainings a month that's required, but you've got to go over and train people and let them know what's expected of them in those situations. Specific to Sandy Hook, it's my understanding that the shooter actually broke through a window and was able to reach in and unlatch a security door. Well, the entry point of the school was secured properly. He had to be visually identified by a camera and buzzed in, and then he would have walked into an adult-only area to be scrutinized and allowed to go into the school. But he got around all that by getting in the door himself. So one of the things you want to do is look at your point of entry. Is it restricted? Is there an adult that makes sure that they let them in and they only have access to adults? Can the person break through a window and reach around and unlock that door? Those are all simple things that can be done. Another thing that I think that my counterpart here mentioned was a relationship being developed with your police in the area, and that's very important. If that relationship is developed, then there's that communication on a first name basis, and the response is quicker and more accurate. That's all I'd want to throw out there to start with. I'll be glad to answer your questions. The one question that I I'm sure is going to be asked is, if in a situation like happened at Sandy Hook, is my school covered for liability? And the answer is yes. In our program, the school is always covered. When you get into hiring non-police force people, the liability changes, and I can address that if you have a question. But thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Mike?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I would also like to thank the New Jersey School Boards and the Piscataway Board of Ed for my attendance here today. Mine is basically a tale of two cities, Bayonne, Piscataway. In Bayonne, we had a crisis thrust upon us in which we had to respond, and then we took steps to make the schools safer. Remember, that was back in 1997, prior to what had happened in the rest of the country. In Piscataway, did not have a crisis, but the school district wanted to be proactive in ensuring that a crisis would not occur in the school. So I'm going to give you those two perspectives, but keep in mind, there are really only two types of schools in our country. It's not suburban and urban. It's schools that have undergone a crisis and schools that are waiting to undergo a crisis. The crisis doesn't have to happen in your school. It can happen outside in the community and be brought into the school. So one of the first things everyone has to do is ensure they have a crisis management team in place that meets regularly and that has their duties outlined specifically. That's number one. So let's go to the two cities. Bayonne, urban community, Piscataway, suburban. Bayonne, school was on 13 acres, Piscataway, 61 acres. Bayonne's architecture, 1917 through 1986. Piscataway, 1954 through 2007. School population, 2,400, about 50% white, about 24% Hispanic, 12% black. The rest are mixed from 50 different countries. Piscataway, 30% white, 30% black, 30% Asian. The rest a mix from about 50 different countries, speaking about 47 different languages, some I've never heard of. So a comparison of the two so you'll get an idea of what we did in each district. Again, we had a murder in the school of a student in Bayonne. We're thrust into a crisis situation. After we took care of the safety and security of everyone in our complex, then went to the counseling mode, we then went to what can we do to make the schools safer. All the things we put in there got us to be in USA Weekend magazine named as a national model of a safe and supportive school. But that was a tough way to get there. Piscataway, again, proactive. We did not have a crisis, but we looked at everything in our district to see what we could do to make the schools safe. So I'm going to give you a comparison of the two elements, crisis and proactive non-crisis. In Bayonne, after the crisis, all of a sudden, money became available, resources became available. That's what everyone was talking about here, the knee-jerk reaction. However, we got a lot of good things out of it. But did the procedures go too far? You will have to judge that. Every student in that community comes into the school with an ID card that they must swipe. When they swipe the card, a light goes off, it's either red or green. If it's red, that indicates they're not a valid student or they might be on suspension, home instruction, and so on. While that's happening, there's a person looking at a computer screen. The child's picture comes up and they're matching the face to the computer. The child then goes to another station where their backpack and their person is searched. They then go through a metal detector and begin the school day. We went from 83 entrances, everything put on maglock, down to 2 entrances to bring in 2,400 students every day. We got it to work. It happened. Piscataway, again, 61 acres, about the same amount of entrances, also maglocks, video, television camera, buzz-in system, restricted entry to basically 2 areas, 2 wing offices. We also have something that we put into Bayonne, but a little differently in Piscataway. We have 9 uniformed security officers. These are not in place of SRO. We have SRO, which is an integral part of our plan, but these security officers add another level to our formation of our administrative team. We have deans, we have assistant principals, and security. They are basically viewed as people who are assisting our students through the day, getting to where they have to go because it's a large campus. We also have 2 golf carts in use. Someone had mentioned about checking outside perimeter. We have a retired police car that we also have as a security vehicle that one of our people constantly goes around the campus. So visibility is very important. Over 200 cameras are stationed throughout the school, which we periodically move positions of the cameras. We have a person who is monitoring those on 3 flat screens. We call it the blue room. Many schools have security cameras, but they only go there to look if something has happened. We're watching those throughout the day, and they're in radio and cell phone communication, so we can be proactive. Metal detecting wands are the only thing we use in Piscataway. We don't have to walk through metal detectors, and we only use the wands on drills and then occasions when we feel it's necessary. So there it's a limited use. So it's 2 different situations. The most important thing I can probably tell you is it's a 3-pronged plan where you have to identify threats to security. That would be outside intruders or security problems. You do that on your violence, vandalism, substance abuse forms, and you take a walk around and look at your neighborhood. Drug activity, community crime, presence of gangs, design of facility, that's all the hardware. You develop your objectives, put in a timeline, make sure they're measurable. The second part, which is equally important, is the in addition to the hardware, is the culture of the school, and that was mentioned many times today. The culture of the school requires that you have clear expectations for your students, you have swift and appropriate consequences. You divide larger schools into small schools, school within a school or houses. We put in a program called PS3, Piscataway Students Experiencing Success. This is where our most troubled students are placed for about a 45-day time span. They stay in that room all day long. Their assignments are sent in, their lunch is in that room, their phys ed is in that room. They then work their way out of that room back into what you would call the general population. They might go out for 2 periods a day, 1 period a day, but they have to earn their way back. It's been very successful, and it's more cost-effective than sending your students out to a receiving school. We have that ability now right in our own complex. Our interagency cooperation is superior. Our police force, again, we have the SRO, we have our first responders, we meet periodically. We have programs that foster conflict resolution. Again, we're talking about the climate of the school. We embrace diversity. And all of these lead to the culture of respect of the school and self. It's ownership and pride. I have here, which I don't have enough for everyone, 2 things you can use right away. So if you email me, I can email these back to you. It's a physical risk reduction checklist that you can check in your school, how you stand, it will give you a rating, and a crisis preparedness checklist. That's a 40-item, which is self-administered, self-scored, and that will tell you where you stand and what you can do next. So I'll be happy to answer questions on that after the panel is over as well.
Mike, you want to give us your email?
M as in Michael, WANKO @PWAY. That's short for Piscataway, PWAY, PWAY.org.
Thank you. Okay, questions for the panelists?
Hi.
Okay, microphone number 2. And let's try to keep our questions to real questions. Thank you.
So has the NJSBA thought about having a third panel in something like this, which would be a technology panel? So I'm here actually today, my name's Joanne Pagalatas, and I'm here as a resident, as a parent, and also a technology provider into school systems for a couple of decades. And it just seems to me, all great things that were talked about here today, you have so successfully integrated technology into the learning environment. There is a huge opportunity here to protect the schools and our kids, much like, and I loved hearing this last story, and how Piscataway did it, but in a more refined way, not having had a risk that funded all of it. But technology today has a lot of answers that could protect. And I just want to tell you that the last couple decades, I think people in this room would be shocked if you actually checked your 911 capabilities from the classroom. All of these budget cuts, the move towards VoIP, bringing down carrier services, 911 does not work in many school districts today. Something as fundamental as that. And there is also technology that's very discreet, that has been available for years in healthcare, the Help Me I've Fallen pendants, and Assemblyman Caputo actually now has legislation up talking about these panic buttons.
So I'm going to answer your question.
Yes.
You asked if the School Boards Association has considered or will consider a separate meeting of just secure technology oriented.
Yes.
And the answer is that I think it's a good idea. We'll certainly give it serious thought. And in part of my conclusion, I was also going to mention the idea that we have plans at our county level. Each county in New Jersey has a county school boards association, okay? And there's going to be further dialogue regarding school security during the next number of months at the county association meetings as well. And this information can be obtained from our website. But it's a very good idea, and obviously good security is a partner to this whole discussion that we're having. So thank you.
Right, and just reach out to the technology community because we also care and we would like to offer those services.
Thank you. Okay, microphone number 1.
Hi, Janet Citrangelo, Ringwood School Board member. I just wanted to find out, how are we going to temper the need to be able to evacuate children if there's an emergency, i.e. panic bars on the doors, with keeping someone from not being able to break through the door and open it with a panic bar? I mean, when you spoke about, you know, how the shooter got into the school at Sandy Hook, you know, those panic bars are there because of safety reasons. If the school needs to be evacuated, the door's locked from the outside, but from the inside, we need to be able to get people out. So how do we do that?
I could
It
give you
almost
the
seems like,
expensive answer. If you have mag locks
yeah,
on
I'm
every
also the budget
door,
committee, so give me the
well,
expensive answer.
if you have mag locks on every door, no one could get in. It takes 200 pounds of pressure to open that door. When there's an emergency, they're all released.
How about a very simple thing would be that it's on both sides of the door, instead of having glass,
Instead of having the skylight or the light.
having something solid so that the perpetrator can't break through easily and reach around and hit the panic bar. It's a very simple and not expensive way to protect that entry point.
I know, it's just that we have to protect them from something that could happen in the school and something that could happen outside. It just seems like such a monumental task.
Those are exactly the type of scenarios that a school board in a district would receive sound recommendation on in a complete evaluation, as my colleague referred to. If a school district has a security audit or evaluation, those types of recommendations might be addressed in such an evaluation.
Okay, and just one other quick comment I want to speak to everybody. Our teachers and our administrators in an emergency are our first responders, and I think we need to give them a little bit of training as well. We call 911 and the police and the fire and everybody comes, but when something happens immediately, people who take care of our kids are our administrators, our custodians, our aides, and our teachers, and we need to consider them as well. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Larry.
Yes.
One of the things that I forgot to mention was that the insurance group has provided a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year tip line called WeTip. And it provides for an anonymous caller to be able to say there's I have a problem, I know of a potential shooter in the school, or I think there's going to be a problem, or I've seen a problem, or I'm not feeling well, I think there's going to, I might take my own life. So this type of situation would resolve, at least provide the school kids with a way of letting us know what's going on in the school in an anonymous fashion. We've all read and heard that the school shootings that have occurred, most of the time someone's known about it in advance. Now at Sandy Hook it looks like that's a different situation, but in Columbine and Paducah, Kentucky, and down in Virginia Tech, all those situations, there were people after the fact that said, you know what, I think I might have known something was going to happen. So this WeTip hotline, which is provided free of charge to every member school district in the insurance group, is a real good place to start with getting information reported.
Okay, next question, please. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Jesse Adams, Board President at Rancocas Valley Regional High School down in Burlington County. I wanted to ask this question during the last session, but it's also applicable here. I mean, we've heard about the budget, 2% cap, all that good stuff that we deal with every day, and we're all dealing with. In the industry that I work in, there's a great emphasis on continuous improvement. And as part of that process, there are best practices, there are companies that have done things similar to what other companies are looking for that have done it a little bit better or in a way that is more cost effective. And so you look for those, and we have a repository of those different businesses or companies that we can tap into and contacts that give us ideas. So, and for me personally, I'll plagiarize anything as it relates to, making us better. I mean, there's no pride and ownership. I don't have to be the guy who invented it. Is there, a method, maybe school boards can do it, that all of us are dealing with this, but there are some that are dealing with it and have taken steps that are a little bit more proactive or better than others. Is there some type of way of getting that information out to superintendents and boards so that we can maybe talk with those different districts, visit those different districts, to hopefully help us and not be reinventing the wheel trying to figure this out by ourselves?
I think that's an excellent question. I believe the Department of Education has something along those lines, but I'll commit to you right now that the School Boards Association will take a proactive stance on it. We'll contact the department and see if I'm correct, and I may not be. And if they don't have what I think they do, we then can survey people like the panelists you've met today, and we can survey all 586 school districts and put together essentially a best practices type of manual, which is what you're talking about. So I think it's a great idea.
I think, there's two districts, one next door to me right now.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
definitely if we're not tapping in, we're going to tap into.
Right, and you know who to call.
Potential folks.
You know who to call. But it's a great idea.
Probably a lot of others that are doing.
That's precisely correct. So we will definitely look into it. Definitely look into it. Good idea.
Hi, Robin Wetmore, Homedale Township, Monmouth County. I think this conference today was a great start, and it gives us a lot of food for thought and general ideas, but I hope that school boards will continue to sponsor more specific conferences that people can go to. I know at workshop, I'm sure this will be a hot topic and well attended. My question is, as board members, we're constantly trying to balance the needs of the district with the cost of providing those needs. And you've heard a lot of that today. Also, the needs of the public to know what we are doing. They're coming to our board meetings. What are you doing? We want to know the specifics. And we have to balance that need to know with our need to keep some of that private and secure so that it is not broadcast out exactly what we are doing. And I think, and I'm wondering, how do we do that as board members, communicate to the public and get their buy-in, but also try to keep everything safe and secure for our students and our staff?
I think one of the most effective measures that a board and a district can take in that regard is to have a professional security audit conducted that results in very clear and specific recommendations to address safety and security in the schools. And then as part of that process, there would be a formal reporting out to the Board of Education on the recommendations included in the audit. Now, a decision has to be made as to which of those recommendations shall be discussed specifically in closed executive session and which might be recommendations that could be shared publicly. Certainly it's appropriate, in my opinion, for the public to know that such a security audit is underway and is occurring, and there may be some low-hanging fruit, that there are some items that are very low-cost, high-impact items that are not of a sensitive nature that can be very publicly implemented. But I found that one of the most effective measures that we took throughout this journey was to have that independent security audit conducted.
Anyone else on the panel? Okay, thank you. Do we have any final questions or comments? Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, please.
No problem. Hi, my name is Donald Seeley. I'm the principal at Cedar Hill Prep School. It's a small private school in Somerset, New Jersey. We have everything implemented, lockdown drills, active shooter drills, all of that. It's a small campus, 9 acres, but it's open, and it's preschool through 8th grade, and we have 4 buildings on the campus. And we feel most vulnerable when our kids are changing classes. So I would ask maybe Dr. Wanko, other than, very tight budget, can't have security guards outside, what could be done to relieve some of the stress that I have during either recess or the change of classes?
It's an excellent question, and please be aware, stress is a part of life. The absence of stress is death. So you will be stressed, especially as a principal. Did Anthony leave? I don't want to correct a member of the State Department. He left? Okay. So Anthony had said before that practice makes perfect. Actually, Vince Lombardi corrected that statement. It's perfect practice makes perfect, because the way you practice is the way you play, like Anthony said, but it has to be perfect. So my suggestion is, we have our teachers out every change of class. They have to be at their doorway. Visibility is key. That really helps all the students kind of get that pride of ownership and that people in the school care about them. They're at the door, they're talking with the students. Is it going to be something that's going to prevent something from happening? Possibly, because an outside intruder will see many adults always at the door or in the commons or whatever area you're using to move your students back and forth. If they see adult supervision, and that's why we have those carts going around the campus, they might not think we're a soft as target as schools are, just because of visibility. So I'd say a lot of practice with your lockdown drills and evacuation drills, and a lot of adult presence would be a help.
I'd like to just add to that. One of the results of our emergency preparedness task force is that we employed the use of tabletop exercises, and it's a very effective tool in predicting potential problems and identifying actions to address those problems. We were introduced to some folks at our County Office of Emergency Management who have some real significant expertise in this process of tabletops. And over the years, we've identified particular threats, possible threats, and we have a two-building high school campus as well, so a very similar situation. And we've identified possible threats, and then we've played those threats out in a tabletop where we do role plays, and individuals take on specific roles, and they have to talk out and act out their crisis management plans. And it's been very effective in refining our plans for the future.
Okay, final one.
Felicia Reyes-Morton from Camden City Board of Education, one of the newest board members. So I'm here today, and this is a suggestion for the State Department of Education. They informed us that there was a emergency preparedness task force. I was actually going online trying to find, and the latest information that I found was from 2007 under Governor Corzine. So a suggestion, I think, would be, is there a more transparent form of communication, maybe on the website, where as a new board member, you would like to get involved in the task force or their upcoming events or what they're currently working on, so that we as board members receive more communication with the state and possibly training. Because as a leader, I ultimately look at the State Department of Education as leadership in education reform in New Jersey. So, thank you.
Good, and thank you. Let's hear it for the panel. If any of you are interested in anything that was said today, please go to the school board's website, www.njsba.org. The video can be found online of today's activities. As I said earlier, we are also going to have additional activities at various county school board meetings over the next number of weeks and months. Dr. Elias is still here if you wish to speak to him and any of the panelists. I want to thank you very much for the fact that you're here. That gives us a significant message, and please accept our thanks and a tip of our hat for your concern, and drive safely. Thank you.